I'm angry. Like, when was the last time you said, I'm angry, and then stayed angry? It's like you just, all of a sudden, it's like you're now in processing, right?
Right. So I'm going to reframe again so that we get the semantics right. So it's not I am angry, I feel angry.
That's good. Yes, anger, I feel angry, because you're not the angry. Yes. Today, we are talking about anger, but before we get started, we are going to do a review of the week. This review comes from YouTube. Great podcast, just like a great meal, full of knowledge, but not too heavy, deep, but still entertaining, and very fresh and juicy. I was fortunate enough to get the help of Dr. Tanya with her great advice. I modified the way I eat, lost a bunch of weight, and I'm running faster than I used to 5 years ago. I still feast on rare occasions with my colleagues, but I'm doing much better. So grateful. That was from Dr. Golani, a general and gallbladder surgeon. Thank you so much. And thank you to all of you for your reviews and ratings. They help get more viewers learning and inspired to take care of themselves. This ripple effect is huge. So please keep sharing. You guys rock.
Today, we're talking about anger, and we're going to start with a Buddha quote. So I can just share with you what I just found. And I love this because it says, never respond to rudeness. When people are rude to you, they reveal who they are, not who you are. Don't take it personally. Be silent. Buddha. So the truth is, anger is part of a human condition, and one that really requires and deserves more attention, because in truth, we don't like it. We repel away from it because it's like, it's uncomfortable to feel it, or it can be caustic and painful for ourselves and others if we lash out against it. Right. And in TCM, yes, we have this whole thing about anger as well as other emotions. So are you okay with me going straight into that, Dr. Tanya?
Yeah. Tell me about all the different emotions that, yes, please, as they relate to TCM. That would be awesome. Like the organ systems, or...
Okay, great. So, well, yeah. So coming from a TCM perspective, we look at emotions as it relates to different energies of the systems of the body. Specific organs are related to specific emotions. And with regards to anger, we say it resides in the liver. More about that in a second, but I want to just talk about it is human to experience all emotions. And we did discuss this in another episode, because when we talked about fear, can you
3? Remember? Yeah, like solutions to fear, which was episode 24, let fear guide you, which was episode 20, and overcoming fear. We talked a lot about fear. That was episode 16, because it was very well deserving too, right? There's a lot of fear. And
yes, and we recognize it so much, right? And especially in the face of a pandemic these days. But I feel that, we don't really talk so much or give highlights to anger and frustration. But yet that is too part of a human condition. And so is worry, grief, fright, shock, and joy. And where do we highlight and where do we want our attention to go towards, and what's most comfortable?
Obviously joy, happiness, right? Like we always want to just be happy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because in truth, because we're comfortable with joy and happiness, and then we want to reject the other emotions. It's like, oh, I don't want to feel those. I just want to feel happy. And so that's why you hear about joy seekers and adventurers, right? Because it's like, you're just like permanently wanting happiness. And what we know is that to have balance and to be a complete human and to have health, we do want to experience, you may not want to, but it's part of the human condition to experience all emotions.
It is healthy to experience it, to feel it, to label it. When we're feeling it, it's better to acknowledge that we're feeling it, so we don't have to sit with the uncomfortable ones for so long. Not that, you're saying not to reject it, which I totally agree with. And one of the best courses I ever took was a Vipassana meditation course, which was a 10-day silent retreat. And we just sat there meditating all day long. And the biggest concept I learned from that, which I loved what we were talking about before, just like the waves of the ocean, like coming in and out, hitting the shore. It's like just not rejecting the bad and not craving the good to stay, but just kind of letting them come and go, right? Like you had said. So just letting things be as they are and experiencing that emotion, labeling it so that you don't stay stuck in it for too long, but not rejecting it completely. Because it's so easy to just say, I don't want to be irritated or angry. But if you say, I'm angry, like, when's the last time you said, I'm angry, and then stayed angry? It's like you just all of a sudden, it's like you're now in processing, right?
Right. So I'm going to reframe again so that we get the semantics right. So it's not I am angry, I feel angry.
That's good. Yes, anger, I feel angry because you're not the angry. Yes.
Because you are not defined by that feeling.
Yeah.
It's a feeling in the moment.
Yes.
But sometimes there's lots of feelings in for more moments. And what we want to do is avoid having that feeling of permanence around anger. We want it to roll in and out like the waves along the shore, for sure. Mm-hmm. Right.
I think kids really teach us that, right? Like you're learning through their big emotions, right? And like we were joking around how we really express our emotions, and not everybody's equal in that way either, right? They might just kind of hold it close to them. They might not express it. And you don't have to be as, expressive to feel an emotion. Doesn't mean that the people aren't expressing it, aren't feeling it. It's just that we express easily. And that's why it's even more important to label it and say, I feel this way. It's really helpful because then you can process the emotion, right?
Yes. And about not letting the emotion define who you are as a human being, because it's just a feeling. It's not who you are. Right.
No.
And I love that you said, comparing with children and just with different people and different types of people, because we all express our emotions in different ways, and even culturally. Right. So some cultures are more reserved and some more, and, it's not like stereotyping in a negative way, but when we stereotype, you look at a Hispanic person or Italian, the expressive, right? Yeah. Versus like a Nordic person, which is very much more silent in their expression. And even in their physical movement, like, I Chinese do it as well. Like, we'll poke and we'll use our hands when we speak. I remember watching my mom when we were younger. At one point, she was expressing herself and she literally poked my dad in the eye by accident because she was expressing so much. And she's like, "Oops!"
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And then there can be misunderstandings because if you're a different type or coming from a different culture, some person's way of expressing themselves may seem like anger and abrasive to someone else who's much more reserved. Well, that person may be just like, but this is who I am. This is just how I express myself. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. And you learn that. I just mean like learning it through kids because they just don't have any, they're learning how to be members of society and guard some of that. Right. So they're flailing on the ground, mad, having temper tantrums.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And
I love that.
We can, as adults, we can also have adult temper tantrums if we're not careful, right? Like if something's a big trigger, like if kids are triggering you and you're responding to it. But the key here is to not get stuck in your amygdala part of your brain, which is like the emotional center. Instead, stay in processing and like the Buddha quote, like stay silent and just recognize that person's having their moment. Let them have their moment, that kid or that person. And then, you can respond later when they can actually process it. Because responding when someone's stuck in their amygdala and they're angry, you're not going to get anywhere. Like they're not in processing, and you can't be in both areas in the same time. In fact, have you ever asked your daughter, I see that or said a statement like, I see that you're angry right now. And they're like, no, I'm not. And like, they're just in denial of it as well. Right.
Well, hey, so not just acknowledging kids.
It. Yeah. But
not just kids, adults do it too. Right? Like, come on, let's be real. And then if we're going to be real and honest here, we're talking about, naming the feelings and like, let's be calm and zen about it. And in truth, we are human. Dr. Tan and I are human. At least I'll speak for myself. Do I get triggered? Have I been triggered? Absolutely. So be rest assured that we are both human. We do get triggered. And it's just, we're on this path together, guys. We just want to help lead the way a bit. Right.
Yes.
And so it's like, yes, there are ways and there is a path. And one of the paths is to name your feelings. And this is what this whole conversation right from the get-go has been about. It's like, name those feelings. So that means you're acknowledging it. Right. And then by acknowledging it, then you're more connected to your feelings. And when you're more connected to your feelings, it has more of a possibility to calm down even on its own, and and not be in your amygdala is what you're saying. Actually, I think you need to go back and explain what the heck is amygdala, because some people might go, what?
So it's the emotional regulation center of the brain versus your frontal cortex, where you're processing the emotion. Like you're kind of saying, like, I feel angry. You're just in the anger. Right. So you're in the emotion and you're just, and fight, flight, freeze, the sympathetic nervous system is kind of kicking in. Whereas you want to try to start to process that emotion by labeling it and saying, I am feeling, like you said, the semantics, angry. I feel angry. And then all of a sudden, the moment you say that, it shifts from emotional center to the processing center, and you can be more logical. But even if you say it, it's a process, right? It's not like you just say suddenly, like, I feel angry, and then you can be processing. It's just like there's a moment where you're like, oh, I feel angry. And then you're calming down, and then you're more able to, after you've said your the reasons, perhaps like why you're angry, then you can talk about it more logically later.
And I love that you put that together, right? Sorry for cutting in. It's just, because when we're talking about, because these are literally different parts of the brain. So we fire up one part of the brain. And what we want to do is actually charge up the other side that is more calm and more relaxed and more sane.
Yes. Logical.
And more logical. So by naming it, you're literally helping to rewire your neurology in your brain.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, we've talked about hormones in another episode with Dr. Fiona McCullough. I feel like over the years, just because of, the busyness and, people, women having to parent and work, and families not necessarily always having the support of, like they used to have in the past. Like we talked about the red tent, and how women would just support each other, raising children, families. We don't have that. So there's a lot more, burnout and irritability, and irritability is anger, right? And so we get more of that when we're premenstrual, and our hormones are kind of on the decline. Our testosterone's more present. And I always say, don't make big decisions around that time. Don't try to be logical. Just kind of do things that help work on the liver, which actually we need to talk about that, like all about the emotion associated with the anger, right? Maybe we can jump into that right next. But learning to not make decisions or, have big conversations when we're premenstrual. But anyways, tell me about the emotion, organ associated with anger, like the paired organs.
So, in Chinese medicine, we look at the 5 elements, and the 5 elements are reflective of 5 main paired organs. And the one that we're specifically talking about in terms of anger, frustration, that goes into there as well. And irritability, that goes in that same bucket. And it reflects back to the liver. And as we know in science, liver is the detoxifying organ. And we relate to it like its ability to detoxify, let's say, environmental toxicity, right? Pollutants in the air. And then also toxicity like that we can get through our food and drink. But little attention is paid to the emotional toxicity. And what I mean by toxicity is like more like a buildup. Because again, as we started, it's normal and human to experience all emotions. It's just when it's harbored for some people, decades, or a lot of people, decades. And because we don't give ourselves permission to express it. And at least express in a way that doesn't hurt others or hurt yourself. And so we need to address that. But, people can then, over time, it gets locked in so much that it manifests physiologically. So in Chinese medicine, we even associate very specific conditions to, oh gosh, this might be a liver condition, right?
Right.
Because the energy gets so locked up, so stagnated. In Chinese medicine, we say that one of the job of the liver energy is to disseminate the qi, the energy of the body, so that it's smooth flowing like a stream.
Mm-hmm.
But when we don't allow ourselves to do that, then it gets blocked up. And when it gets blocked up, then it can impact other organs. And not much different than a pressure cooker, right? So you have emotions and it can fester and build up and build up and build up and overheat. And it can like explode at some point. And you might know this expression. It's like, I get so mad, I get hot or burnt up in the face. You can actually see that in people. Have you ever witnessed that?
Yeah.
Someone gets mad or frustrated. My daughter, she gets bright red in the face when she's mad. Like it's a physiological response.
Yeah. Is that like liver fire? So like the liver qi stagnation is turning to liver fire, right?
Yes, it can for sure. Absolutely.
I mean, I'm not necessarily saying her specifically, but like that's where it could go if you don't address the liver qi stagnation or that blocked energy, that irritability,
and it's
resentment.
Okay.
And resentment's like irritability, right? Like same. Would you say resentment is also?
Resentment is part of it for sure. It's actually a huge part of it. Resentment comes more when it's repressed for over periods of time, though, right? It's been sitting longer.
Right, just sitting, yeah.
Right? Versus
that's why it's so
anger in the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
Like it's normal to have the anger in the moment. Let it go up and out. Like I say to a lot of my patients, it's like, when you're sick and you need to throw up, do you hold it in? Do you?
Are you asking me if I'm sick?
Sure, I'll ask you. No, you just like, what?
No.
Like you get it out, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not calling anger as sickness. I'm calling anger as like this emotion that we need to let out, like that you would, same way as you would like need to purge out, bad food.
Right. No, that is such a great analogy and good point, because otherwise it's just going to stay down and out and feel awful, right? If you have to throw up, purge. I think being careful, we want to express. Sometimes there has to be somebody being the third person in a conversation. We don't say hurtful things, right? Like we just say, and then Alison Armstrong talks about it rather than, let's say, bringing out the resentment or anger in a way of saying hurtful things and criticizing, instead kind of sharing the need, like and constantly communicating, sharing your needs, and then stringing an emotion, like the impact it will have on you. So I really need you to do this. I'm trying to think of an example so that then I will feel less anxious. Like I need you to pick up all the clothes that, you leave behind, or teach the kids to pick up the clothes and put them in the laundry hamper, because then I'll feel less anxious. I feel calmer when the clothes are in the laundry hamper, just rather than be like, do you ever teach the kids to pick up the laundry? Like, is that going to get me anywhere? Is that going to get my need met? Yes. It's anger. It's irritability.
Yes.
But is it going to get what I need? No.
No.
So
and so what you're
expressing it. Yeah.
Yes. So what you're addressing is expressing your need so that you don't actually get into that place of anger. Right. So you're actually even preventing it from coming on in the first place.
Happening.
That is the most ideal, right? Of course. It's not about avoidance. It's about communication in a way that it doesn't even allow anger to be building up in the first place.
Fester and skip on the criticisms.
Yes. Yes.
And we know that research shows that like resentment and anger, like, it basically increases risk for anxiety, depression, insomnia, high blood pressure, ulcers, migraines, backaches, heart attacks, and even cancer. Right. So this is like the intersect between research and, and modern medicine. Like there was a time where doctors would sit with you and say, you have a stomach ulcer. you're worrying too much, you're stressed out. And then H. pylori came about, right? So it's like the bacteria now. So it's like, oh, you have a bug, we just need to kill it, right? So it's interesting how, like, modern medicine has for years talked about this connection, but and we know that there are connections between how our emotions unexpressed, they manifest into physical illness. Somehow it got disjointed along the way, like disconnected, because we found other causes for things.
Well, and you know what? I'm going to say, yes, H. pylori is a cause, but then why does it overtake the body in the first place?
Right.
Point of weakness. But why is it point of weakness? And so in Chinese medicine, we say most cause of disease is due to the emotional affect. It's an internal cause, an internally generated cause. So that decreases our ability to defend ourselves from H. pylori. Right? So yes, we can say, yes, H. pylori is the causative factor from a clinical Western point of view. But beyond that, you got to say, well, why?
Right.
Why is the body in weakness to have this take over you? Because not everyone gets it, right?
No.
So anyway, I think this episode, we're running out of time. And this anger issue or conversation, we can just keep on going. I would love to do another episode where we'll teach people maybe an acupressure point or two to help soothe the liver qi and their energy to help you be more calm. It's one thing to just tell you the impact of anger that is festering, but it's another thing when you actually live it and have it in action in your life. And Tanya just told me earlier about a time when, she saw a real tangible impact in her life when she was holding on to anger. And I would love for you to share with everybody about this time.
Yeah. So thanks for asking. Love to share, because I think it will really help people see that your emotions definitely do impact your organs, or can. I was postpartum and there were hormones involved for sure. And there's genetics, but yes, they play a role. But the emotional component, I don't think that if I was as frustrated and irritable and burnt out and feeling like I was doing it all, these were my perceptions of the situation. Feeling like I had 2 children, young and moving, staging a home, part-time working. I felt just overwhelmed. And as we mentioned earlier, like culturally, we have more support in the past. I'm sure it must be even harder right now in pandemic times, but I ended up in the emergency room with colic type pain that was so bad that I needed morphine, which is totally unheard of for me, right? Being a naturopath, going and requesting pain medications at that level, because I couldn't stop throwing up. And how you asked me, like, if you've got, the feeling of throwing up or nausea, do you just hold on to it? So I am a throw upper. I am a puker. And so when I have pain, I am a puker, but I have pain. That's how my body responds, which isn't so good because you get dehydrated. So my body was responding with like throwing up and colic, and I couldn't speak. And I thought it was, at first we thought it was an ovary cyst rupture, but it just kept going and going. And those are usually like 4 hours. I've had a few of those in the past. So, but it was like lasting like 2 weeks, and the doctors couldn't figure it out. So eventually they had to do an MRI, and they discovered that my gallbladder was inflamed. And so my sister at the time said, "You're just angry." And I was like, "Really?"
Yes.
I'm like, and I said, and then I didn't like acknowledge it at the time, but later looking back, I was overwhelmed. I was resentful, having the feeling that I was doing it all, like all the parenting, the work, the staging of the house. And like, so I like to just recognize that there was that connection. So I have a gene, like the genetics for gallstones, but I didn't have stones. It was just literally an inflamed gallbladder. And my daughter had food poisoning a few days prior, which I got, but then it just turned into this like inflamed gallbladder. And I don't think that they said it wasn't related, but And then the emotions later, recognizing that I was just, there was anger, there was resentment, there was irritability. I had to definitely talk it through. And I don't think I had like, and ended up being that a project manager, a friend of mine, ended up kind of housing me up for a few days and like saying, we need to map out your life and, find some balance here, figure out ways to make things, healthier for you. Because again, she recognized saying, this isn't just because your gallbladder's inflamed, like they don't know why, like that it's thick and there's fluid around it on the MRI. This is emotional too, she said. And she's like, and you've taught me that, over the years. So it was quite interesting how everybody else can see that and recognizing like harboring the resentment and irritability turned into that and realizing later, just like releasing that, and then finding balance, which is why we decided, me and you, we're going to do programs to help postpartum women learn from our mistakes and find balance, because it is a lot when you're a career woman and you're working in addition to waking up at night. Like if you're sleep deprived, you're breastfeeding and you're trying to work and you're parenting a toddler and you're like as well, and you're doing it all feeling, if you don't have that support, and little tips on how to manage everything and let go of it perfect and certain expectations, for example, it can get you there. You can end up with literally a health crisis.
Yes, absolutely. And I hear it all the time. Postpartum women having to go get surgery and actually specifically for gallbladder, that's a common thing. Postpartum women, right?
Do you know what the surgeon at the time said? You know what the surgeon said? He said, if it comes back on the weekend and you eat chicken, let's say, for example, it comes back, or like fatty chicken, it comes back, then just come back and I'll take it out. But he goes, go home and do a gallbladder cleanse. He was an Asian surgeon. That's amazing. Yeah, he was so awesome. He's like, you're a naturopath, go figure it out. And so I think it was a combination of the physical, like the nutrition and the gallbladder cleanse. But, it was also totally everything about dealing with the emotions.
100%. But so that's why we always say, we need to deal with the physical, but we also need to deal with the emotional and spiritual, right? It's all on the same continuum. In Chinese medicine, there's no differentiation. It's part of the same. We are whole people. Unfortunately, like there's amazing things about Western science. We can get so microscopic and see so minute, right? And we can fix a problem in a very microscopic way. However, when we do that, we lose sight of the whole, the bigger picture, the web of all things, the interconnectedness of our cells and of the universe. And so that disconnection sometimes has us go away from ourselves, and we don't recognize that your gallbladder was basically giving you signs and saying, hello, pay attention. I'm over here. I think this is too much. I think you're doing too much. You need help, right? Yeah. And it wasn't until it just kept on knocking louder and louder at your door until you had to take
I kept
morphine.
going home and then going back. One of the residents is like kind of suspicious, like, is she coming back? Like, is she a drug addict? This is like her 5th time coming back. I'm a naturopathic doctor. I've experienced pain before, lots of it. And I said, this is a lot of pain. This is after I'd already had morphine. I said, I'm not drug seeking. You need to send me to an internist because this isn't normal.
And so thank you guys for being here. And we made some references to different people. So really check out embraceyoufirst.com and you'll see all of our stuff in our show notes.
Actually, honestly, recently, filling up my cup has been just taking little miniature moments just to have nothing in my head. So just actually not just meditating with like a progressive guided.
Okay.
Oh, we're recording. Okay.
So this is the end of the podcast. And as we end, we always want to leave you on a high note. And we want to ask you what filled your cup today. And we're going to start by sharing what filled our cups today. So Tanya, do you want to go first?
Sure. So for me, recently, I've just been taking these little miniature moments just to pause, not have my head occupied by guided relaxation or podcast or anything, but just literally being present and focusing on my breath as it goes in and out of my nose, and taking these moments where it's just nothing. It's kind of, I I preach it all the time, and now I'm practicing it, taking that moment.
Yes. That's so great. I love that you say that, because that's what it is. We are human, and we follow this all as well. Like, we dish out, but we actually take what we say to heart and practice it ourselves. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you for that share.
And how about you? Thank you. What about yourself? Anything that filled your cup recently or today?
And it's interesting that you said recently, because I just spoke to a couple of new patients yesterday, and it really filled my cup. And when one of them told me that she read my book, and she said, and she's a physician, and she found me through my book, and she said it made a world of difference to her, because it was told in a way of stories, and she can connect with it and identify with it. And I love that, because that's exactly why I wrote it in the middle of the night, because I'm like, there are so many how-to books out there, like with, like, do this, do that, don't eat this and don't eat that, or right, move like this. And it's just like all the way in the way of doing. And I just really realized that it's how we connect as human beings through our struggles that can make a really profound difference. And I'm so grateful that that's exactly what happened for her. So that's my book, Pathways to Pregnancy, that you know of. So if you haven't, yeah, thank you. And so anyway, I just want to share that.
So anyway, on that note, we're going to talk about, letting go of resentment, forgiveness, and in another episode, because it's so important. And it would be awesome if you haven't already, like this particular episode and subscribe and share with all the people in your life that you care about and that you love, because imagine the ripple effect and the impact. Thank you so much.